Hey everybody, today I'm in Fishers, Indiana, just to the north of Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm gonna get into a question that I hear quite often from people who aren't really from around here, either the Midwest, Indianapolis, just I guess this part of the country. Other parts of the country are certainly different, especially like California. So what they say is when they get here and they look at just a neighborhood like this, we'll look over here across the street, look into the backyard, look into the backyard of these homes right over here, is I don't see any fences. Is it that nobody in Indianapolis or any of the cities and towns that surround Indianapolis, does anybody use a fence? Does anybody put a fence in? Because where I'm from, there's just fences everywhere. In fact, it's not even fences, it's walls. So we're gonna get into that here in this video as to how that's sometimes true, but other times not true at all. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Indianapolis or a place like I'm in today, Fishers, Indiana, talking about fencing, which you can actually see right behind me right now, any of the cities and towns that surround Indianapolis, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Tap a little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. Now we have people reaching out to us from all over the country. So if you're from the West Coast, California, and you're used to having your walls and fences, you'll probably be able to find them here, but also you're gonna find some places where they aren't going to exist. So if you have questions about specifics like that, or anything else living in Indianapolis, or any of the cities and towns, make sure you reach out any ways you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move to the Indy Metro. Again, I'm in Fishers, Indiana today, so just really barely north of Indianapolis. And looking back through here at these backyards, and in this neighborhood across the street, looking at these backyards, if you were going down this road here, taking a look at some homes, or if I'm out with somebody and we're actually going to a specific home that's for sale and we're gonna tour it, you might just notice an area like this and think, does anybody have any fences? Because where I'm from, we have fences all over the place. In fact, we have cinder block walls or walls made of some kind of material to where if you go in your backyard, you absolutely cannot see into the backyard of your neighbor. Now, in some cases, it is true. So if I'm going through this particular part of this neighborhood, right now, I can't see, just probably because of the angle, I can't see a single fence, except just barely through the trees over there, but you'd have to really be looking for that. So you might come through here and think, wait, nobody has a fence, or at least very, very few. And so you could get confused sometimes about, well, are they even allowed? Does anybody want them here? Does anybody need them here? And of course, some of the main reasons you might want a fence, other than just having some privacy, would be that, hey, I've got small kids, and if they go into the backyard, I wanna make sure that they stay in the backyard and they don't wander off someplace else in the neighborhood. So here's a good example. If I'm looking this way, actually this small tree is kind of in the way of a fence, but you can look back through here and there aren't any fences. So you've got this street and these houses that face that direction, and then you've got the backyard and the back of these houses that are on the other street, and the houses back up to one another. Now these lots are actually really nicely sized, so you do have a pretty good sized backyard. You put a fence around and it starts to look a little bit smaller. But this looks like somebody once called it a super yard, these super backyards where all these houses back up to one another, nobody has a fence, and it just looks like everybody has a giant backyard, and it looks almost like a communal area. But you'll have property lines in there, so you'd have to have a survey to figure out exactly where that property line is. But when somebody moves in, generally it's just, where has the previous person been mowing and where's your neighbor been mowing? And you just have this agreed upon area that everybody's gonna take care of. But even though the property line might be a little bit off that, it's usually pretty close. But I've got small kids, and I want to make sure that they stay in the yard whenever they go out, or I've got a small dog, or a big dog for that matter, especially, I guess, a big dog. You don't want running loose through the neighborhood scaring everybody. But I need to make sure when I let them out that they stay in the yard. So right over here, just kind of noticing, there's a privacy fence right there. And I say privacy fence, meaning you can't see through it, and it's 6 feet tall, although you can have fences that are taller than that. 6 feet is about the limit that you're gonna see. So I wanna make sure to have a fence. Now, you can't do this with kids, but you can certainly do this with pets, dogs, you can have an invisible fence. Those are really common here, and you'll sometimes see signs out, or you'll see a dog wearing the collar, but an invisible fence as they get near the border of it, because it's a little line buried in the ground that you can't see. It's invisible, and their collar will start beeping that they're getting close to it. And then there's a correction. It's a little shock, actually, if they start to get too close to it and try to cross it. So once they learn where that line is, they usually stay within it. A well-trained dog will do that for sure. But you can't do that with kids, of course, so you might want a fence to keep them in. So if you get in a neighborhood like this, you're gonna notice a lot of places, like across the street over here, no fences. And there could be a lot of reasons why they don't have fences. Some people will say, well, we got an HOA here. And actually, there's another privacy fence right back over here, kind of in the midst of this super backyard. Well, does the HOA allow a fence? In most cases, most HOAs are going to allow a fence, a homeowners association. A lot of homeowners associations scare people, but usually they're there because they're needed to take care of common grounds, like the entrance to the neighborhood. That has to be insured, it has to be taken care of. So there's some bills to pay with that. And a lot of times in an HOA or a neighborhood with an HOA, you could get some amenities. You could get a playground. Maybe you can get a pool. Maybe you can get a tennis court, something like that. This particular neighborhood has some of those things. And the cheaper an HOA is, less expensive per year, you're probably gonna get a whole lot less. The more expensive, I hope you get more. And they could even come and plow the streets. They won't plow the sidewalk, like this sidewalk that I'm walking on right here. You're actually usually responsible for that as the homeowner, for the sidewalk in front of your house. And then any of these driveways, they're not going to plow the driveway for you. And in fact, when they come and plow the street, they're probably gonna pile of snow up right in front of your driveway, and you kind of have to dig a little path or use a snowblower to get a path cleared so you can get your car out of the driveway. Now the good news is that we don't get a tremendous amount of snow. But back to the HOAs. So the HOAs are probably, in many cases, going to have rules for fences. They'll have an architectural review board, and a lot of times you'll have to pass your fence plan through the architectural review board. And it's going to get passed. If you see other fences in the neighborhood, you're going to be allowed to have a fence. You really will. But there might be some restrictions. It's just a matter of, sometimes you'll have a height restriction. Like sometimes you can have a 6-foot fence, like you see in this neighborhood. Another one right over here behind me, another privacy fence, what we call privacy fences. 6 feet, can't really see through it. So if you're in the backyard, it's actually fairly private. And if you live, let's say, in a neighborhood that doesn't allow those, they might still allow, I was looking for one over here, a 4-foot fence, or instead of 48 inches, maybe it's 42 inches, so pretty close to that. Now this is another kind of super yard here, but there are some in this neighborhood where it's enough of a fence to be a border or be a barrier for, yeah, it's another 6-foot fence back there. Yeah, there's actually plenty of those around. So you might have a fence that's 42 inches tall or 48 inches tall, something like that, and then the material is gonna be the thing. So maybe you can't have a chain link fence. Chain link fences, generally people think they're not as attractive as some other fences. So that's definitely one that comes up pretty commonly, is you can't have that. But you could have a wooden fence, and a lot of the fences in this neighborhood are wooden. In fact, the majority of them are wooden. You could have all different styles when you get into the wooden fence, and most of them are probably gonna be approved in your HOA, unless you got a really specific HOA. You might have vinyl fences, which are a lot less maintenance, like a white vinyl fence. You might have to clean it every now and then, but wooden fences take some maintenance. You have to clean them, maybe power wash them, stain them from time to time. You don't have to, but it makes them look better, and of course they can last a whole lot longer by doing something like that. Or you could have there's a wooden fence over there. Actually, you're at the 48 inch or 42 inch mark, and these actually have some curved tops. This one over here actually does have a little curved top instead of straight. The one that's right behind me over here. So you could have a wrought iron fence. So a black wrought iron fence. Those actually look very, very nice, but they're the least private out of all of them. This one here isn't terribly private, but you can certainly see through that less than you could a wrought iron fence for sure. So you could also have some different rules inside the neighborhood if you're on a lake. So let's say everybody around here can have a privacy fence, like these guys over here, but if you're on a lake, you might not be able to have that, or on the retention pond. You might not even be able to have one of the wooden fences on the retention pond. You might be restricted because the HOA is wanting to protect what the retention pond, which is supposed to be a place that collects water in the rain, and it's just a place for all the rain that hits the rooftops and the roads, a place for the water to go and be held until it can drain into the storm drain in the storm drain system. But it's supposed to look fairly nice too, at least an HOA that's going to take care of it wants it to be a feature. And if you live on that, then they don't want to disrupt that view. And so they may put some restrictions on you and your house and those houses that go around the pond, either height-wise, you can't have a privacy fence, and it could even be material. So when you get into that wrought iron fence, which you can see through really easily compared to a fence that's wooden, even if it's one just like that one over there, that is about 42 inches or just under 4 feet. You still can't see through that one as well as you can the black wrought iron fence. So you can get into some of these restrictions, and you just need to be careful with that part of it and some of the specifics. But when you roll through a neighborhood like this and you see fences that exist, you're probably going to be in good shape for getting a fence. So fences, while maybe you don't see them every single place across Indianapolis or neighborhoods like this one here, there are plenty of fences in this area. So if you have questions about things like that, fences or anything else that you might or might not find in a neighborhood around Indianapolis or any of the surrounding cities and towns, reach out any way you know how, and we'll definitely help you with those questions and get the answers for you. And until the next one, we'll see you later.